Thank you, everyone. So my name is Bala. I know it's a long name. I'm a cloud solutions architect. I pretty much work on the data and AI space a lot. Um, my job is basically helping my customers to digitally transform and use AI in a way that actually works with human rather than replacing them. So I'm not going to show you product automate or anything. I'm going to show you how we are going to increase the productivity of a user and how Microsoft is developing products for that. So let's, without any hurdles, let me go to the next slide. Why am I having a hard time? Hang on a second. Okay, so can you guys see the slide? Everyone can? Okay. So today's agenda, let's go over why the labeling service and workflow, and I'll talk to you about approaches, current priorities, and show you a quick demo that I did it for you guys. So as you know, like AI is been there for a long time, almost now. I think it seems like old, but even though it's catching up these days. But vision especially is getting a lot of momentum because that's been a little bit pioneering in that AI and ML space. AI, ML I use synonymously because AI is built using machine learning, most in the case. Here for vision, usual approach they use, like probably I've heard of CNN, deep neural networks. That's basically the technology that powers all these things. Now, one of the challenges always been for custom, if you want to develop, you saw Brian talk about the cognitive services, which are pre-built models. But now if you want to customize it to your own needs, it has its own challenges. Like we need a lot of labels data set, and that is not available. More than that, we need a lot of images for us to even do, say, if you want to predict if it is a cup or a not cup, like a Starbucks cup or something like that, right? So those are being the challenges. So what we are trying to do, like I said, this is basically from end to end. First, we have to collect the data, and then we are using the labeling services to do label data. There are labeling services already available, which some of you might be using it. It's as you know, it's a humongous task. Like you have to go and either tag the image, either this is a cat or a dog, or you have to draw a bounding box and say this is a cat and this is a dog. If most of these images might have both in it and things like that, makes it challenging. So what we are trying to do is, like, for this end-to-end workflow, we're trying to see how we can tackle the challenges. And when we decoupled everything, this is where we came up with. Challenging is the volume of the data, and how you're going to move it, and then the tooling. How do you iterate it? Say, for example, you have so much data, like say 50,000 images, and say we wanted to use, like, we want to have like 6 or 7 people working in it instead of one person tagging everything. How do we do those kind of situations, and how do we manage those kind of projects so that after we label, then the data scientists can go run their model and provide us details. Plus, of course, as you know, like Microsoft is always put security and privacy in place. So how do that play? Make sure that you are the right person who are using the data, and nobody else has visibility to it, and nobody hacks into it, and things like that, right? So we put a lot of effort in security and privacy. Now, so you saw all the challenges. I'm sure you're probably hearing that a lot. What did we do? So what are we going to do is the other question, right? So we are going to take the unlabeled data set, and we are going to have create like tasks. I'll show you how the project works and how it all comes together. You can upload the image, and then you can have a project manager assigning. I mean, you don't have to assign, you have to add labelers. And then they can actually go take the unlabeled tasks, and either they can do clustering or pre-labeling. Clustering is basically like there is a mechanism inside where it'll try to group the images and show you. It won't label or anything like that. It's just for an easy thing. But I'm going to talk to you today a lot more on the pre-labeling aspect of it. which is where you will see the productivity, because what we are doing is you can manually do some labeling, but then there is an ML component that actually comes after it and guides you and tells you, and it does its own bounding boxes, and it'll tell you like, hey, I did so much so of this things, can you validate it? So you can see like it's, instead of spending hours, we can reduce it to a couple of hours, but just the ML is only helping you. That's the idea behind that. And then once you label the data, you can export the labeled data, and then you can either use our machine learning services to build the ML model, or you can also use Jupyter and customize and do a lot of that thing. And then if it is not, if you're not happy with it, you can add more model, and then you can actually go through that and do an iterative process. Now, what is labeling? For example, if you take an object detection project, you want to find out, is it a cat or a dog or a duck or whatever it is. So these are some of the variations that we do. We do classifications without marking anything, saying whether it is a cat or a dog, like whatever the picture, the classify the whole picture itself. But the power comes is classification plus localization, where it says like, hey, in this picture, this is in this particular area, the red area is where you see the cat in it. That is more powerful. Then we go to the next level and do object detection. Object detection is something that is very popular these days for especially covert and detecting humans and tracking them, and you're probably seeing and hearing it. And those takes a lot of time in terms of like labeling it. First of all, collecting image itself also takes time, but we have to do it. And we also have to do the object detection. Segmentation, keep that for another day. So what do we so what did we do? We built a platform, and what are we targeting in that platform is we are targeting two personas, basically a project manager, so that you can govern the labeling process, which will be basically part of your entire data cycle life cycle. And then the data labelers. Data labeler doesn't have to be one. It can be a couple of them. Basically, they only need is have an email address in the domain that you're working on. And then I'll show you when I show the real ML assisted data labeling, you will see it. So here is basically a flow of how we do the clustering. The system actually takes the unlabeled data and it creates tasks component. Now we also use a lot of open tools inside. The IP is only helping you to do the augmentation part of like helping the bounding boxes and classification, not the modeling itself. So the modeling IP, you can take it, no problem. So it takes the unlabeled task. In some scenarios, if you wanted to cluster it and say like, okay, I have 100,000 of images, can you classify this as cars, trucks, or dogs, or cat, and things like that? You can do that. That's why it creates the task, and then it runs through the cluster task, and then it'll show you as to a human to validate that. Make sure that this is where human in the loop comes in play. We want to make sure that a human is actually validating it, making sure that the data that is getting fed is correct and it's not incorrectly labeled and things like that. And it goes through an iterative process. Now, a sample of that is like this. It takes the images and it actually classifies and it tries to recognize it. Now, this works very well for common, whatever the web available corps and things like that. This one is more of the next generation that we are talking about, is the pre-labeling, which is the bounding box tasks. Here, it's the same thing happens. Rather, what happens is you actually go and do a bounding boxes, and you actually specify the specify and say like, hey, this is my object, and then the say for example, if you're doing 1,000 images, you don't have to tag all the 1,000 images. Rather, you take like about 250 of them and you label them and tag them, and then then you can come out and the system will automatically run the model, and it'll come back and it'll tell you that whether it needs more images for you to tag, or it'll also tell you like, okay, I'm done and I've already pre-labeled so many images. Can you go and take a look at it, right? That's basically the idea, that it is augmenting you, and it's helping the productivity in that sense. And then you can create the models and things like that, and you see like you can also, this is how you actually basically tag for image classification. Now let's talk about the flow. I mean, how usually that our tool works is like, first is you collect the data. Once you collect the data, you will create a data set. We are going to use that data set to create a labeling project. The labeling data will be, first we have to start with the manual labeling. And when I show the demo, it will be very, you'll see it. And then to do that, you can add labelers. Basically, like I've done a couple of projects where it's not just me, but my colleagues were also part of it, and they were also helping labeling. And you can actually see the progress of how they have labeled, how many images they labeled and things like that. We were kidding around with one of the projects that we did, like the most people who get like a lot of labels in here might get a raffle item or prize or something, and then everybody started jumping in, you know. So you can do things like that and check quality of the labels, and then finally, once everything is done, once you're comfortable, then you can export the AML data set, and then use our own Azure Machine Learning itself has its own AutoML. We use AutoML to train model also. You can also take this labeled output and build your own model if you want, or you can also use the AutoML to build models for you as well. So those are the capabilities that we have. Now let's go to the actual deal. I'm hoping that everybody would like to see a demo. Can a couple of yes, no come? Yes, Ron? Yeah, seeing anything? Okay.
Oh, hi. Yes, but Bala, everyone loves demos. Everyone loves when you tell real life stories.
Awesome. So this is coming, I mean, even though I'm using a data set, which is publicly available, and I also created Ron will share the deck with you. I created a sample tutorial for you guys to go and test it out and make sure like you can play around and let me know. Now, since I have to protect others' IP, I'm not going to show a real project, but I'm going to take some of that what we did, and we're going to show you how we did it over here. So can you guys all see the screen? So this is our Azure Machine Learning Services. If we start talking about all of these things, I can go for days, but for our purposes, I'm going to stick to the data labeling here. What I did is, like, if you come, I can go here. This is where I first started. And the way you usually do is like take the data set and upload it to a blob storage or an ADLS Gen 2 storage. That storage will allow you to give like any number of like you can store any images. So you can see like I have 5,000 images over here. I'm using the Coco data set. The actual one is 49,000. And I'm honestly, I didn't have the time to label label some of them, so I just took a smaller version of it. So when you create a project, you go here, you add, and then you select like image classification or object detection. I selected this, and I'm saying like Ron's sample, actually Angel Beat sample. Then it's going to ask you here also to create the data set. Now, since I already have it, I can actually select it. If not, you can do create data set and make sure you create it from a data store. It also has a local storage you can upload, but that might take a long time for you to upload. So I would prefer you guys to save the data in a blob or an ADLS and then create the data set. Once you create the data set, it's going to ask you next. And incremental refresh, this is basically say today if you have in the data set, if you have 500 images, tomorrow if you add 5,000 images, you're telling the project, okay, now yesterday it was only 500, now I added 5,000. Please go take the 5,000 and add it to my project so it becomes 5,500 images, and that helps you to add more images and tag. I select that default, and then here is where you're going to say labels. You're going to say I wanted to detect a person, I wanted to detect an airplane, I wanted to detect an horse, I wanted to detect an elephant. Like that, you can actually specify the labels in here. And then this is where you're going to specify this particular screen is done by the project manager. Here you can specify any instructions for the labelers. Can you please draw bounding boxes for the labels? If any questions, please feel free to reach out to, like that. Or you can put in a website, whatever instructions you have. You want to give them detail, you want to explain them what these objects are for your custom domains. That is also possible. You do that, and then this is where the magic that happens actually. You have one requirement here is you need a GPU compute, otherwise it won't work. So select the region where GPU is available. I have it in East US where region is available, and I have created the compute over here in this compute section. Or you can also create your new compute here. And make sure you enable this ML assisted data labeling. Now, once you do that, you click create project. Now, I'm not going to do this because I already have it done. And as you know, these are not just click, 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 and you're done, right? These are a little bit consuming, time-consuming projects. So as a project owner, if you come in, this is your dashboard. In the beginning, it'll tell you the number 5,000 and 0. And then in the bottom, you see where it says labelers performance here. This is where you will, all you have to do is you have to onboard users into your resource group. And if they log in into ml.azure.com to this project, they will be able to come in here and then they can label, and I'll show you where they're going to label. Once they label, this is where you're going to see. So it's telling me that I did the labeling and I did about 454, which matches here, right? Now, if you have multiple people, it'll tell you like Bala did 400, Ron did 300, and Raj, the person who's going to talk next to me, did like 10 of them. Like that, it'll show you. One in the beginning, it'll be empty. This experiment sections won't have anything, right? Now, here is where you are going to come here. If you go to the details, you can see all the configurations you did. If you click on the labels, you will see what are the labels that I created. Now, let's go and see how we do the labeling. So this, you see this label data here. This is where most of the thing is going to happen. The first screen that you're going to see, it's going to show you that instruction screen that the project manager did, right? Now I'm going in as a labeler. And you can click the view detail instruction and it'll show the entire details. Now here is where you're going to see start labeling. Now this is where the task is about. Here is where the data labeler UI is going to sit. As you see, you can see the tags on the right side. Where's my cursor? See this? Tags, computer, car, airplane, and all those things. And you can zoom. There is bounding boxes, and then you will have the rectangle region. These are to delete region. This is to lock. You can, once you put, once you do all the bounding boxes, you can lock, and then you can set some brightness and things like that. These are like to enhance the image, just for you to view it. And then this is very important to skip it, because as you see, this is a great sample that did. So the way the task system work is like behind the scenes, we decide if it is 4 labelers, we'll say like, okay, each labeler will get 75 images and we'll create separate queues. And these queues are not mingled. So my queue, and if Ron is working, Ron's queue will be totally different images that we'll see. So we won't duplicate the same thing. And it also tracks it in such a way. And even if it needs more images, it will actually take more image and it'll actually put it in different new queues for the same labelers, like for me and Ron separately. In this case, it's a very classic example that there is an image, but I don't have any of the tags in here, right? I don't think I see cat here, correct? Okay, yeah. So I don't want it to label anything because I don't want a false label. So I have an option to skip it, and it'll skip it for you, and it won't rotate that. Here also, it'll skip it. Now these are Coco images, which is very generic image. Now here, I want you to see it. This is the magic. You didn't see me drawing the bounding box, did you? No, right? Okay. But can you see this? How did this bounding box came? So this is where what I did is, like, when I logged in before, I tagged about, remember the 454 number it was showing? I tagged that many images, but I had 5,000 images, right? So what the model went and did is, after I did that 450 or so, it ran few models and it picked up, it said like, okay, I have enough images, so I am going to create a model. My model's threshold matches the criteria, so I'm going to go and do bounding boxes. And it did the bounding boxes, and it came back and it said like, save this. Now, when I come back, and if I go to the label, you see where it says task pre-label. This pretty much tells me that, oh, this is computer actually generated that bounding boxes, and okay, it's showing me like, okay, now validate this. Now, as a labeler or as a program manager, this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to make sure that my images are correct. So I can, instead of me drawing anything, I can look at it. Okay, perfect, good to go. I'm good. And I can just keep on moving on. Now here it couldn't identify anything. And it is also true that I don't have any tags in here to match this. So I'm going to skip this. So I'm hoping that you're getting the gist of it, right? So here it didn't do anything. Ooh, that is bad. So what I can do, um, I can actually go and correct the model and say like, okay, here, I wanted it like this. So this is basically you're overriding it, right? Because not all the time the model is going to be 100%. But we wanted to make sure that, okay, whatever we do, at least to a decent level, we'll get the model. So we wanted to tag the images in such a way. We don't want it to false tag images and confuse the model and things like that. Now, this is absolutely wrong, as you can see. It's a classic example of, I don't know why. Maybe I falsely tagged zebra as elephant. I don't know in which world that would be. So I can delete this, and I can easily say like, okay, no, this is wrong. Okay, delete it and skip it, right? So as you see that I can actually validate it. Now here it couldn't pick up anything. So I can actually take and tag people in here. It's too small of an object, but I'm just going to show you for a sample, and I can hit submit. So now I can keep on doing this. And now once you validate, you come to the main dashboard screen. I want you to see a few of those things. Here you see this stats, right? Now look at here, and look at the pre-labeled. So out of that 5,000, it is trying and it is telling us that, hey, based on that 458 image tag, this label experiment, this is the one actually triggers the machine learning model for us. Okay, this goes back in the behind the scenes, and see, it took like 20 minutes to train the model. And once it trained the model, it says like, okay, now I'm going to validate the trained model, and then I'm going to inference the trained model. This inferencing is where you get this pre-labeled one. So this means the model went back and was able to tag 507 more images. And then now it is saying like, what is basically saying is, it's saying like, if you want to trigger a next training run, you can submit 336. So this is where your guided human in a loop system comes in. So instead of you doing everything at one shot, you're just doing it in small batches. At the same time, the AI is actually helping you to increase the batch speed. It's saying like, okay, I might more need 725 manual images, and I'm gonna and I have 500 and pre-labeled. Validate that for me. So even though it says 725, it says, no, you go ahead and only do 336. Let me rerun the model again and see if I can ease that and tag more, right? That's the whole idea. And then here is your label class. I mean, I tagged a lot of images had only persons in them. You can see this basically shows the skewing, right? I mean, I don't have enough elephant, horse, computer, and all of those things. So this model will predict a person without any problem, elephant so-so, and it won't do airplane, computer, I would doubt it, right? Pick the data set, whichever is convenient for you guys. And you can also come in here, you can see the data set labeling. Once everything is done, the label task is done. If there is no label images here, then you can come here and you can also validate. This will also show you where you can see what and what not, and then you can reject here. This is one thing, say like if Bala went and did a wrong image, Ron can come and say like, oh, Ron is the project manager, so he can come and say like, oh, he tagged it wrong, so I'm going to reject this, right? You can do that. And you can also see the information in here, how we created the project, and what are the computes that we are using, GPU, the classes, and all of those things. Now, there are other things you can do also. If you go into the project, if you want to add more labels, you have to stop running this here, click this disable button, then you can add more label tags, and then it'll ask you whether you wanted to restart experiment from fresh, or do you want to tag with the new data sets and things like that. So that being said, so this is basically what I really wanted to show you guys. I hope it was fun. Now I will. I think I can send. Ron, you're going to send the slides, right?
Yes, I will send these out. Please send this to me. Bala, could you also comment? Bo from Americam had questions. Are you able to use the same labeling methodology, not just with photos, but with other data types, be it documents, unstructured data, structured data, or is it limited just to images?
As of right now, the data labeling is only for images. There is a roadmap item, which I can't give you the dates, but there is a roadmap item for text and audio coming.
Okay. Hey,
Does that make
Bo.
sense?
Yes, Bo.
Okay.
And for all the people out there, you can email me. I'm sure that sometime in the near future, if you're excited about this kind of application, you might want to use it as you alluded to in the question for documents for text. Email me. I will connect you with Bala. I'm sure once this gets formally released, there might be a beta version of the software. There might be some prototyping involved as Microsoft wants some additional information, and we can provide you with that. I know VJ had another question if the form recognizers does the same for text, and I think that is, again, forthcoming. But I also know that Microsoft has other tools, or conversely, we're going to hear more about robotic process automation, where there are tools out there, maybe not as sophisticated as the image analysis tool, to enable organizations to have that text-based analysis for upcoming data. Are there other programs or methodologies, Bala, that you know of?
Yeah, there is a text analytics API. The form recognizer can also do it. There is also, we are releasing the GPT-3 now that can also do comprehensives and things like that. There are a bunch of options.
The good thing is, given the size and scope of Microsoft, once, and I'll allude this to Bo, VJ, and anyone else, you could use AngelBeat as just a central point of contact. Send me some brief information on what you're trying to do. There may be a more precise or elegant solution 6 months out, but as Bala was alluding to, there are undoubtedly solutions available today that may require just a little bit more customization, but can absolutely help you achieve what you're looking to accomplish in your organization. Does that make sense, Bala?
Yep. So the
Excellent.
last few thing is like I have the link for the lab demo. Check it out and let us know. And then I put some resources for you guys where you can read about what I showed. Whatever I showed today is publicly available. Go play around with it. Let us know. Give us feedback through Ron. Always appreciated. And that's it. Thank you, everyone. Here is my email.